everyone, it's Evelyn, the creator and host of Reppin. I hope everyone has been well. I took a little break and it feels great to be back. Thank you so much for being here. Before we jump in, I want to give you a quick heads up. You can watch this and other exclusive interviews on my YouTube channel, so definitely go check it out. Okay, now I'm kicking things off with something very special. This is the first in a 3-part series of exclusive conversations from New York City's prestigious Tribeca Film Festival. The festival is a premier showcase of fearless storytelling and visionary creators who are shaping culture through the power of film. And this conversation, it hit different. I'm talking about a fantastic film called Pinch. The story centers on Maitri, a young woman who is a vlogger living in India, caught between her dreams and a mother who doesn't quite understand her path. When a trusted figure in her tight-knit community gropes and assaults her, Maitri takes a stand that shatters the silence and forces a reckoning with truth, trauma, and tradition. Pinch marks the first Indian film in 3 years to compete in Tribeca's acclaimed international narrative competition. That's a huge deal. And the force behind it? One person, one voice, one artist who wrote it, directed it, produced it, and stars in it. That's not just talent. That's vision, grit, and a refusal to stay quiet. If you're navigating your own challenges, pushing against expectations, or trying to reclaim your story, there's something in this conversation that will speak directly to you. This is about owning your truth, finding your power, and it all comes from a young, talented filmmaker, Uttera Singh. Congratulations on Pinch. What a great film. And thank you again for taking time during this very, very hectic moment, huge moment for you during Tribeca to come sit down with me. Now, I watched the film. I loved it. I want you to introduce your character to the audiences and describe what kind of person she is.
She is definitely very complex, very human, flawed, reclaiming her power, and fearless in a way which is scary. I think it's scary to be fearless. And I always think about that, is that, even though you want to say something, but you're so scared, both things can exist together. And I like the duality of that, the nuance of things existing together.
I agree. I think it's human. I don't think human beings are one thing, right? We can be contradicting things at once.
Yes.
Now, I have to tell you, I think she's fearless. Your character is a spitfire. But I think it's a very powerful story. And by the way, love the soundtrack.
I just have to say that my composer is brilliant. And she is absolutely a phenomenal musician and a phenomenal composer. And everybody should hire her because she's best. Rashi Kulkarni, you can find her on Instagram.
It's a really powerful story of this young woman that was molested and groped and assaulted. And she speaks out. And there's many levels of this film that I really love. I love that you're a young woman at the helm of this, behind the scenes. You didn't just star in it, Utra. You co-wrote it, you directed it, and you're here in Tribeca, and it's amazing. You really embraced this very powerful story. You're also a young woman of color. You and I are both of Asian descent. You grew up in India. And this is a story that in many ways you do connect your culture to the story and its nuances. Can you lay out some of those differences between the Indian culture when it comes to sexual assaults or molestation with, it's a much more universal story because it's not just about, being a minority. Sexual assault, unfortunately, is still something that women, men, some men have to deal with. And it is a power dynamic struggle. But for you as a minority woman or a woman of color, you do take on and look at a lot of the cultural nuances within the film. Can you talk a little bit about why that was important and what you had to think about to showcase some of that?
It was mostly because I wanted to film in my hometown, and this is what I know. It was easier to write what I know. I wanted to write a bunch of different women from different perspectives, not also just having holier than thou women. I wanted to have flawed women in it too, and how we're all deeply affected by power, and how we're all deeply, we have, patriarchy ingrained in both men and women. And, I love this book called Invisible Woman. It is one of the reasons which really inspired me to make the movie, is that assault is not a gender issue, it's a power issue. Across countries, races, I think it's sad that when you're dealing with power, when you're dealing with assault, it's so hard. There's such a thin line. It's such a sensitive thing. And it's so hard to talk about in any cultures, because if it's not a cultural thing, it's a power thing. I mean, with the Harvey Weinstein stuff, people were not talking about it because it was a power issue, but it was in the US. And
right.
That was the cultural thing here. In India, it's more like societal dynamics, familial, shame around your family name and things like that. So it's the same issue, but has taken different forms in different cultures.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and I'm going to just speak from my own cultural experience. I was born here in New York City, but I'm of Chinese descent. And I know that by and large, and obviously we're speaking generally because there's exceptions to every situation.
Yeah.
But by and large, when it comes to anything that is about shame or problems, the Asian culture, Chinese culture, tends to not talk about and sweep it under the rug.
Oh.
So I think...
Indians too.
Indians too.
Let's I don't want to speak for an entire 1.5 billion population, but, we're good at it. Let's not talk about it.
Okay. So you and I are kind of, in similar arenas in that regard, but I think you did a beautiful job in showcasing some of those nuances without beating someone over the head with it. Because in many ways, it was about struggling to keep face. In general, in the Asian society, it's a patriarchal society. So, your character in the film, she's a young woman that had to go against all of these things. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if this is a spoiler, but when your character told her mother what happened, and the mother questioned her, I was really pissed off.
Yeah.
I think some Americans would watch that and be like, well, if I was a mother, I'd be like, going off and storming the castle, And yes, maybe that is true in some cases. Again, this is speaking very generally. But you showcased the fact that A, it's culture. B, that she needed to eat and to survive.
Yeah.
Do you remember some of the struggles that maybe you saw your mom go through in terms of not have a voice, and how you sort of brought that into the film?
My mother is an exception. She gave voice and was a very, very strong feminist voice in my culture. So I got very lucky.
She is an exception.
Absolutely an exception. Feminist icon all the way through. Truly. I have seen that, the mother's character was definitely inspired by a lot of women I've seen in my life. Not my mother. Badass. But, just people pleasing is like a big thing that I was, basing the character on. Being such a people pleaser that she'll put all the boxes in her home to just please her friend. Or cook for the entire engagement party. And the pressure that she has because she doesn't have her husband around. She doesn't have her daughter around. This is her life. This is her world. And her questioning her daughter is because she knows her daughter's telling the truth, but she's so scared of the system of power, the dynamic that she is in.
Yeah.
My co-writer and I discussed this. We were like, okay, this is hard and this is very tough because she's also a parent who loves her daughter,
Right.
loves her and supports her, but also has this complex relationship with her where she is an Asian parent. She's never going to be proud of her. She's just higher
I get that.
expectations, higher standards of like, why do you want to be a blogger? I need you to be a success story. And now you're going to be talking about everything publicly. Why are you doing this? Don't put your dirty laundry out.
Yes.
And our film was very lucky to have our actor, Geeta ma'am, who is absolutely phenomenal to work with. And she's such a good actor. When we were talking about her character, she asked these questions and she's so particular, in her own research and in her own actor work that it was so inspiring for me. I learned so much from her. So we had a lot of conversations about like, this is hard, this is tough for her. But she's also grappling with her own reality of her life.
Yeah.
And how she wants to be seen in society. And I think there's a line, I don't know if you remember, where she's like, it's not all about you. I have to survive here.
Yes. Which actually then complicated watching the film for me, because at first I was really annoyed at the mother because I was like, your daughter just came to you to say that she was assaulted. Like, why are you not just ferociously behind her? But then you just sort of laid out like, and it really did humble me because I was reminded like, I mean, I'm a New Yorker, right? So I can't forget that if I were to go back to Hong Kong or China, it's a completely different ballgame. And I can't impose my beliefs on somebody else and, acting appropriately. And you know what? If that none of that matters, let's say, girlfriend's still got to eat and she's still got to survive, and I think you did a beautiful job in sort of saying that when you were taking this on in terms of, I don't know, pick a hat that you had to wear, actor, director, co-writer. Can you talk me through some of the thoughts that you had as a creative that you really wanted to make sure you put in the film that you wanted to get out to audiences?
I just want to go back on the point that you just mentioned about, we can't, I think there's sometimes we get stuck in this mentality. And I really think that when you're reading about, when you are coming from a culture and you want other people to follow what you're saying, like, believe my ideas. Why don't you agree with them? And you want everybody to get on board.
Right.
I think it's so counterproductive sometimes because you're not having conversations where you are listening. And I love the idea of it. I don't know which country does it, but the human library, where you actually go sit and talk to people that you've never spoken to before. So
wait, there's a thing that does that?
I think probably one of those incredibly progressive countries where actually want you to, dissolve your biases. I just think it's so important. So for me, even like approaching this I didn't want to ever put my strong opinions on someone. I was like, no, I'm open to listening. Please, I'm asking questions through the film as well.
When you find that place, can you let me know and I'll meet you there?
Oh, same. But going back to your question, wearing multiple hats, I think most directors end up also doing a lot. If it's your child, you just, you'd still need a village. And I got very lucky. I had multiple villages helping me. I have a very good team. And so I can't take credit for all of it.
Here's a thing that I wanted to kind of get to before I forget my thought, which is going to be in about 3 seconds. This conversation is difficult to have in terms of assault, regardless of what culture or walk of life you live in or you are in. It's especially difficult for minorities, people like us. What are those hurdles that you think exist specifically in the Indian culture? And what kind of conversation do you want to start with this personally? Not as a director, but as a young woman.
It's hard for me to speak for the entire community because we have so many small communities in like India as well.
Of course. There is no culture that's a monolith.
It is hard. And I think it's shame related. If it's small, you just brush it off. Like, how we were like, let's just put it under the rug. Okay, I don't want to deal with the consequences of the bigger thing.
Right.
And people get scared of that. We're so used to it. We just have adapted it to our culture of like, this guy flashed me on the street today, or, he just grabbed me in the bus or in public. Right. And I've had multiple conversations over the years, and I don't know anybody in my life who's never not been assaulted. That was also one of the reasons where I was not only just Indians, like a lot of my friends. It was one of the reasons I was like, wow, and I don't know what the solution for it is too. I hope to start a conversation and know that we're not alone and reclaim our power.
Yeah, I think that's really important. But I think the start of it is to have storytellers like yourself that allow us to see that this is happening, that people that look different, that it's happening to, and showcasing the nuances that exist within each situation. And look, the show, my podcast is about representation, right? But representation is applicable in a very wide scope.
Absolutely.
And until you see that this exists, it's hard to put language to it, and then it's still very taboo. Yeah. So I tip my hat to you in terms of shining a light, not only because it's a good film, and you're a young woman that's like doing this powerful piece. I think there's a couple of other layers that are happening here. And tell me if I'm right, because I'm the consumer and you're the mom of this whole thing. There are generational aspects that you're looking at as well. And I think for me, the thing that I most loved about this is that it's about finding your voice. And I think it's specifically very important to not only find your voice, regardless of what culture, but again, I'm going to go back to the people of color, because minority culture, and again, I'm speaking for me, Chinese people were told to be quiet, keep your nose to the grind, and just work. Don't rock the boat. And in your story, you're the lead character, despite that she was trepidatious and scared to talk about what happened to her, she found her voice. This can't happen unless this came from you, Uttera. So can you talk about how your character found her voice, the importance of that? And can you give me an example of, like, do you remember a moment that you found yours? And if you can explain what happened during that moment that made you realize you found your voice, because look, being a producer, director in TV, you need to have a point of view when you're creating a project. And if you don't have that, you definitely need to find your voice if you're going to work with a crew.
Yes.
Because you're leading an entire group of people. Can you tell me a moment about when you maybe struggled with finding yours and the moment that you did and how it felt?
It goes in waves, I think, for me too. Sometimes life's hard, and being human is hard, and we're all trying our best. When you're 18, that's like a different way of seeing the world, and you're like, yeah, everything is awesome. And then you grow up and your frontal cortex develops and you're like, oh God, this is hard. And so I think, finding your voice and losing your voice and finding a new voice goes in waves. Like, what I thought 2 years ago, I don't think anymore. And
right.
There have been multiple moments of me losing my voice and getting it again and reclaiming it again. And it's not just a big particular incident that happened.
Can you share one moment? Because sometimes it's not the big moments that are the catalyst for growth.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're the smaller moments. And I'm glad you said that it's ebb and flow, right? Because sometimes for some people, it's not like you find your voice and then you have it.
That's it. It's achieved. You have achieved. You can go do whatever. I wish it was that easy. It's so, I have to listen to multiple podcasts and multiple books sometimes, talk to my best friend and be like, give me the, give me the voice again. Please remind me of who I am. Something about my brother, actually. My brother is also incredible, and I'm very lucky. We were both dealing with a lot of grief and a lot of, and I had to go back to college, and there was an option where I would have stopped my education and not gone back to college. But it was my brother who came to me and he said, no, you need to go back and you need to study and you need to finish your education. You can do this. It was like 2 minutes. It was not a grand speech. It was not a big like lecture, but it was just him believing that I need to do this and I can do this. It meant the world. My older brother, it was just that little moment that I was like, oh, wow, thanks for the reminder. I love you. You're the best.
Oh, that's great. So you need to remember this the next time he pulls your hair or shoves you in the closet.
God. Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah. Why is that universal also? Why are older brothers like...
It's love.
It's love. I think it's a form of,
Yeah, just remember that the next time he pisses you off. But
I'm going to be so happy that I used him. It's shocking to me that he came...
It's not usually the big, speeches that we see in the films. It's usually the smaller moments that make the greatest impact. The fact that you've accomplished so much in this film and that you wrapped your arms around something that is incredibly important. Representation works in both good and bad ways. And I think when they are able to see someone who looks like you doing a movie, directing, co-writing, acting, and let's not even get into the whole cliche, but also true stereotypes of the weight of expectations on Asians to succeed, to be a doctor, a lawyer. For me to go to my parents and say I wanted to do entertainment, that seemed like some great, I could have said I wanted to make elephants fly. And I think that you succeeding the way you have at premiering, directorial debut at Tribeca.
Thank you.
Is a fucking huge. I'm sorry, I need to curse because I'm a New Yorker.
I want to curse too.
Please, you're open forum here. It is a fucking huge accomplishment. And I think you doing this, you showcase two young women who can relate to you, not just innately by culture and physical appearance, but they will see a young, capable woman at the helm of this movie succeeding and also using your talent to have conversations that are important. And I think that's very, very powerful, the duality of it in terms of being on screen and off screen and also having this conversation. Now that you're getting out there, what are some of the responses that you've been getting that have meant the most to you?
Thank you for all of that. It's emotional, it's very emotional, but I'm here to hold space because it's a lot of people walking up after the screaming and talking about their own assault. And all I can do is just hold space and give them a hug. It's healing for me as well to know that, because it was very important for us to give the characters a happy ending. It's so important. It was so important because not to define both women through their trauma. That was very important. They have a full life. They are living their whole lives. They're going to be happy. Our trauma doesn't define us. And so I think the emotion in the end is just an overwhelm of things happen, but our life is bigger than that. And we are enough. It's not, our trauma is not going to define us. So that was the most important thing. And I think the tears are not like, oh shit, what happened to me? I think it's a lot of survivors coming and being like, yeah, I'm more than my trauma.
That is incredible that you're able to put language to that so concisely. I think that's incredibly powerful. Look, we've all gone through so many different experiences that run the spectrum as human beings. We are never formed by one thing. But having said that, I will say that the tendency, I think, and you could debate me if you think if this is incorrect. I think sometimes as humans, we tend to lean into or are gripped. That's a better word. We're gripped by our trauma. We're gripped by our hardships and challenges. And it's hard to break free from it. And there's a tremendous amount of weight. How did you know to pivot and make sure that in this story, it was a happy, empowering moment and the power behind that?
Firstly, I also want to say we both were talking about cussing while talking about our parents.
Yes.
Two things existing together was so funny to me. I just needed to mention that. I was like, that is so funny. As we're making our Asian parents proud and fuck this.
Listen, my parents already gave up on me years ago. I'm a mess. Yeah. I failed math 3 times.
I failed math.
Oh, okay.
I failed math. And I failed math. And then thanks to my math teacher who was like, you need to study. Just reached. 10th board is a big board examination in India. And it's because of my math teacher that I passed that. And then after that, I'm done with math.
Well, listen, I think you're doing better than I am since someone's premiering their film in Tribeca. Just saying.
Math does not define us.
I know. You and I should start a group therapy of some sort because clearly we're like fucked up from this.
I honestly, math was scary. It still is for me. I'm like, you know what? I'm not meant for math.
I think you're doing good. And we have calculators at this point.
Exactly.
But yeah, in terms of like understanding in a very cerebral way that we're not defined by our trauma, how did you come to, was that like a clear-cut thought in the film that you wanted to put in?
It was definitely an intention, and it was definitely a thing of like, we want to make sure that this like walks the thin balance of the absurdity of life, that humor can exist while we are going through trauma. And life is absurd like that. We just walked this thin line, but very conscious of like never disrespecting the assault side of the movie and treating it with the utmost care and utmost attention. And I want these women to have a happy ending. And which I just wanted it to be like a movie that you leave the theater and you're like, I'm okay, I'm going to be okay. Quote the great Sir Kendrick Lamar, we're going to be all right. I love that song so much.
I seriously thought you were going to quote like Confucius or something, but Kendrick Lamar is close second.
He is close second. Come on.
I think that's really good.
Yeah.
But you were very intentional with all of this film, and I think that's something that has to come intrinsically from who you are, Uttera. Like, how did you deconstruct the story in terms of like the points of view? Because I would have never thought to have layered in the mom dynamic, because she was very 3-dimensional. I wanted to vilify her at first, and I did when this character had the courage to finally say, hey, this happened. And the mom was like, are you sure? Like, do you have to say something? How did you become this insightful about like just human nature? Because it could have been very flat.
Well, I can't take credit for it. I think it was a lot of writing and rewriting and asking the right questions. And I have to give credit to my co-writer. And we had discussions to nauseam of like, okay, well, how can we make them more complex? Because life is complex. People are complex. And we put in a lot of effort during the writing stage. Friends and producers who were willing to read the script and give us perspective, which I highly recommend, even though it's a lot of work. The first draft I wrote by myself, I sent it to my co-writer, and I sent it, and he gave me the note, and I was like, oh God, it's so annoying because he's right. And I know now how much work will go into this. And as much as you dread the work, it's so important because sometimes you're just thinking in one way.
Right.
Just here. And then in the end, of course, you always also get bad notes and you have to be able to. So it's just listen. And with listening comes observation. So you actually put that in your characters.
I got to circle back to something that you had mentioned earlier, your mom being a badass feminist.
Yes.
Which is, again, for everyone that's listening, these are all general statements because obviously there's nuance. Everyone is so different and individualized. In a patriarchal society, it is very difficult to be a woman and then also be a woman who actually understands her power and voice. Yeah. And you said your mom is a badass.
Absolutely.
So when you're growing up like that, can you talk to me about some of the moments that you saw your mom being that vocal badass? Because clearly there's a correlation between who she is and how she brought you up. So you can make a film like this. Do you remember something your mom did or said
Everything.
Okay, give me one.
Her whole existence. Well, for starters, she would say this one thing to me, which she would tell me, which gave me the courage to make this movie. And anything would happen, she would be like, and I would like to say it in Hindi first. It's like, agar kaanta bhi chubhega, main puri bagar tod dungi. Which means that even if a thorn pricks you, I will burn down the whole forest. So
wait. Slow that roll one more time and rewind and say that one more time. I love that so much. I don't think that will fit on a t-shirt, but say that one more time.
Even if a thorn pricks you, I will burn down the entire forest.
That is badass. Now say that in Hindi one more time.
Ek kaanta bhi chubhega to main puri bagar tod dungi.
Oh, I love these things. Okay. Now for people who can't, like, what did that mean to you? And what do you remember a time that she said that to you and you're like,
all the time. I would walk around like I can do anything. And because she's going to burn down the whole forest for me. You know, her form of feminism or her form of existence was just such a voice for not only herself, for our community, for the women in our community, for the men in our community. She was a woman who covered her head when she wanted to. When she didn't want to, she didn't. But she started a school by herself. She came from a village, started a school by herself, started with 30 students, and everybody told her not to do it. And she was like, oh no, I'm fine. And I think she was a true manifester because she started, people would ask her like, oh, I'm going to build this school, I'm going to do this. And people like, you're crazy. None of that is going to happen. She did everything she said she would.
And how do you think that impacted you when you were a kid?
That I could do anything.
Without setting the house on fire?
You know, without setting the house, because she put that in me, like, if you believe it, then, and it's a famous Hindi movie line too, that if you believe in something so, you know, with so much of your soul, the entire universe will conspire to get you there. And I think sometimes you have to be this woo-woo, you know, to keep going, even if it feels like, oh God, please, that's too cheesy. But I love the cheese. Give me the cheese. Give me the woo-woo stuff. Because I've seen it happen with my mother. I've seen it.
Did you say that your mom also, like, spoke out for people?
Yes, absolutely. Communities, hundreds of women. Like, and the thing is, she was not only a mom to me, she's been a mom to a lot of people.
She spoke on behalf of people. In some ways, how are you doing that now with not only your talent and this project?
Her form of feminism was doing and less talking. Do the work. She did all the work for so many people, but never needed the validation. Never needed the social media approval, never needed the print work. Her change was happening on a one-to-one basis. And her change that she made in people's lives still affects me, which is such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
You know, people don't remember her for like the success. They remember her how she made a difference one-on-one. And it's so crazy because it's a generation. I'm her daughter and it's still, people will come and help me in a way. They're like, oh, because your mother did this for me. So thank you.
That is gorgeous. I think you actually said somewhere in an interview that you shot this obviously in your hometown, as you mentioned earlier, but the whole frigging community came together to help make this happen.
And it was because of her and my father. Absolutely. Because they have been there for the community in a way. And then the community was like, and specifically my mother's village, they were like, this is our chance. And they were like holding me and not to get too spiritual, but I think my mother was definitely there holding me too.
I guess this is the connection that I'm making now. Because that she did what she did for others and being that voice, I think in this film, you are also that voice for many who are still struggling with the power imbalance. Can you kind of see that you're doing the same thing as your mom?
I mean, this is such a big compliment. If I can be 1% like her, I've made it.
It's a wonderful film. But I think, I mean, you must have at least acknowledged on some level that this is about empowering women and, you know, giving light and continuing a conversation that is much needed.
All I can say is I am her daughter.
All right. So, Uttera, I always ask all of my guests, let me know who you are and what you represent.
I am Uttera Singh. I am the writer, director, and star of Pinch. I am my mother's wildest dream.
I really enjoyed that conversation. A huge thank you to Utra for not just sharing her talent, but also for her honesty, courage, and depth throughout. I had so much fun with her. And one thing that really stayed with me is this. Your story, no matter how painful or complicated, it's yours. And when you own it, it becomes power. It's a reminder that I think sometimes we need to hear a little more often. If you enjoyed this episode or it moved you in any way, I hope you'll listen, download, and follow Reppin. And please share it with someone who could use a little inspiration, fresh perspective, or just someone who loves podcasts. Please follow me on Instagram at Reppin_podcast and share your thoughts on episodes, see exclusive tidbits, and don't forget, check out the YouTube page where you can watch this interview and some others. The handle there is at Reppin Podcast. Thank you always to Nelson Pinero for riding shotgun with me. Reppin is a Suburban Outlaw Productions. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, stand up and represent.